Hey, so you guys use the CLI to AOT that PWA, right? Okay, cool. You know, just tossing around some Angular acronyms around the office today. What's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin Schwarzenberger. Today we are going to be discussing discovering Angular content, a topic I'm pretty excited about as somebody who's excited about self-learning and always staying on the cusp of kind of the buzz of what's going on in our community. We're going to talk about all these techniques and stuff, where we discover our content at, and hopefully share with the viewer some techniques that you guys can do to discover content as well, stay abreast on the latest Angular news. Our panelists today that we got joining us, we've got Mike Brocky. Mike, how's it going?
Not too bad. I appreciate you throwing out the CLI acronym at the beginning.
Yes, yes. And Austin McDaniel, aka NG Panda, still staying strong. How's it going?
How's it going, guys? It is so cold down here in Florida. It was 46 this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's cold. All right, cool. Well, our guest today, we have Michaela Lehr. Sorry, I'm trying to what's my name, and then Gerard Sans joining us.
Hello, guys.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Cool. And Michaela, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm fine.
Good to have you guys. All right, so let's get talking about this topic. First of all, let's get some more introductions about our guest here. And why don't you guys tell us about what you guys do on a regular basis in terms of working with Angular code and stuff, and then these other projects that you got going on. Gerard, do you want to start?
Yes, sure. So I left my my consultant job late last year. So for the last year, I've been concentrating on Angular 2 trainings and also going to conferences. You probably have seen a lot of noise in the social media. I also organize few communities in London. So one of them, probably the biggest one, is Angular Zone. And I just recently started another one, which is called GraphQL London, which is pretty new. And then another community that I just took it over because the guys organizing it moved to other things. So yeah, I do quite a lot of stuff. I also do blogging. You probably have seen some of my blogs over these last 2 years. And what else? What else I do? I sometimes get in trouble, so people will invite me to do different things. So I did, for example, Master of Ceremonies for a few conferences this year. So yeah, it's been a good year for the last year.
Very cool. Cool. Well, we're glad to have you. We're going to get into, I want to talk a little bit about, discuss with you about what you do for figuring out content for like Angular Zone, and then as well as patterns that you take to, I mean, with all your blog posts that you want to get out there, how do you effectively make sure that you can reach the most people, and what are your strategies for, you know, finding out how people discover your content?
Yeah, sure.
Michaela, why don't you tell us a little about your project? You have this Angular 2 comment newsletter that's super awesome. I love it. I plug it all the time. I'm very excited about it. You deliver such great content for that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, what you got going on with that, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm Michaela. I'm a front-end developer and UX designer from Berlin, and I have my own web development studio, a small studio where we do mostly web apps and hybrid apps. If we can, we do it with Angular. And last year, almost a year ago, I started the weekly newsletter on Angular because I wanted to keep up with all the content of the new Angular version 2. And So I was reading and watching and listening to all this stuff, and I thought it would be cool if I had a newsletter and share it with other interested Angular users. So that's why I started the Angular 2 commit.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's talk about how you guys go about figuring out what content you're going to deliver for those. Because obviously you're having to do some type of curation, right? When it comes to the newsletter, I don't know how you have a certain amount of things that you plug in there, right? So you have to, I'm assuming you weed through content, not weed through, but you look through content and figure out, okay, what are the ones I want to share through here? And same way with Angular Zone, like how are you picking the next topic that you're going to decide to cover and provide relative information that you think that the community is going to value from that?
I'll cover it for Angular Zone. I think it's a little bit different for a meetup, for a community, because obviously, regardless the topics that you think are hot at the moment, you also need to find the speakers. So you can have few topics that you are looking after. So for example, if I'm looking after Angular 2 material, that may be a hot topic because of the recent release. But then finding a speaker that can cover this topic, it's another matter. So then, in my case, what I started to do is looking into these webinars. So for Angular Zone, I started contacting the people that is not really easy to find locally. So that could fill this gap, which is why I think I've started to do these webinars more and more.
And how do you decide, like they say, like Angular material, and there's a latest release, like what is making your decision on, oh, this is probably something that people are going to want to see, so I need to find out somebody to talk on that? Like, how are you making that decision that topic is hot, right?
I think that's completely subjective. So in my case, I don't have any process. I just think a topic is hot, and then I will start chasing speakers or content about this topic. But it's basically my own feeling.
Do you feel that you have a pretty good handle on that in terms of some Jedi senses with that you've curated over time, like become good at it? And it just maybe because of your experience and the amount of time you spent doing development and discovering content on your own and self-learning, that you kind of got this feel for, oh, I can get a feel for the buzz of what's hot, and that kind of leads you, and you predict pretty well, or do you still feel like it's kind of a crapshoot?
Well, I usually, when I pick the topics I think are hot, I like them, so it's difficult for me to see if I'm wrong. So only other people can tell me. I hope I have a good sense. I'm not sure.
Right, and you can get a kind of a feedback loop from a meetup group, because then you can just at the end of any particular meetup or any time during a meetup say, hey, what are you guys interested in learning? But if you're doing something like a webinar where it's online, that feedback loop is a little bit closed. And I imagine with ng comment that ng2 comment, that it's a little bit harder not having that immediate feedback loop of the content that people are interested in.
I would just put anything Todd Motto writes, just move it to the top.
That works.
I think it's kind of strange because I'm like a step behind where Gerard is, because every week I discovered that there are some hot trends. Like the last week were full of AOT stuff, and now it seems to be gone. Maybe animation is coming or something, but it's always like in these 2 to 4 weeks sections where for some strange reason a topic is hot, and then there are like 4 or 5 good articles on this topic, and other topics nobody's writing about. So I would be curious to find out where these hot topics are coming from.
I think it's like when one person starts writing about something, like it inspires other people too, right? So, you know, I see something about AOT, I'm like, oh, I've got a different experience than that person has. Maybe I can add to this by writing an article or something.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk about like, when I see this or when I see that, where are you guys seeing this stuff at? I mean, are you following people on Twitter and you're finding this? Are you just looking at blog posts? Like, how are you seeing this? Like,
I'm have like kind of three main sources, and most of it's Reddit or subreddits about Angular and Angular 2, and then Google Alerts are helping to keep track of everything that's posted in the web on one topic. And yeah, then it's Twitter, of course.
I usually just follow Gerard on Twitter. He'll tell me everything that's hot. He's like my news source aggregator.
I use another approach. My approach is I try to consume everything, which is probably not sane. And in this case, I also since, I don't know, sometime last year, I decided that Angular was not enough. So I started to look into React, JavaScript, and then more like web technologies, because there's some interesting, what is this? Some interesting pollination, I think. So some topics will move from one area to the other. And yeah, obviously in the Angular scene, there will be these topics coming and going, but there are some trends. You can see, I guess, if you look into other places, then you can see other trends. But yeah, it's taking a lot of your time as well. So you need to be a little bit aware of that. No, don't get too much content. You can get dizzy pretty quick.
I think looking to other industries or other avenues and then bringing that back is a good approach as well, because then you can discover things that maybe these other areas are doing and then look for how could you do that in Angular? Is there content out there about doing that in Angular? I know Austin likes to find a lot of stuff in React and VR and then come back and look, okay, how can I do that in Angular? And so that's another good way to discover content that could be helpful to you in the future as you develop stuff of not just what's Angular specific, but what's done other places, and then how can I do that in Angular?
Yeah, I would recommend that. So I think it was last summer, and I do this sometimes. So I go exploring, like I go into the jungle and then pick something that I liked. So last summer I was looking for some cool topic, and I stumbled with GraphQL, and I really liked it, and it was really popular in the React community, but for some strange reason there were no information whatsoever in the Angular community, and I was a little bit like, okay, maybe nobody knows about it. So then I decided to be kind of the guy, you know, taking it into the Angular community so other people could like know about it, because otherwise it seems there are some walls and people don't really see what's happening, you know, in the other neighborhood. That's some interesting things that happens sometimes.
That's an excellent point, because without exploring what everybody else is doing, you're not going to innovate yourself. You need to, it's an easy avenue to think outside the box, because if your sounding board is everybody that you already know who is like-minded, then you're not going to get any counter feedback or any objection to what you're doing. But if you look at other parties and how they're solving the same problem, you're going to get some different perspective, and I think that's a great idea. Not only individually, but also for groups. So with the content that you're finding, have you considered bringing in speakers, writers, or presenters that are not necessarily inside the Angular community, just to give some counterpoints to different ways of approaching problems?
Yeah, totally. So I realized a few months ago that Angular Zone should cover web technologies in general. So since then, I had some people talking about the progressive web apps and other topics that are not specifically Angular, but they are web, like relevant to web development.
Yeah, so what are the, like in terms of just a regular, or anybody out there, our viewers out there that are trying to stay up, I mean, obviously they're watching AngularAir, hopefully they're trying to consume some content here, right? What can we talk about in terms of like, what do they need to look for content for? I mean, obviously they're out there, they're in their day jobs, they're building something with Angular, they need to figure out how to do something, so they want to do that. Or they want to, you know, continue their education on their own self-learning and do that. So like, what are some of the reasons that we want to encourage people to constantly look for content and stay abreast on content and up to date on that sort of thing? Anybody?
You want to take that, Michaela?
Like,
yeah,
I think like, you know, it's not only about like figuring out how to do this or that I'm specifically working on, but I kind of want to know, like, look, I'm going to approach something at some point with the router, and I may not need that right now, but I know that down the road I'm going to need it. So if there's something coming out on that, if I'm watching Twitter and I'm seeing people post an article about that, I really want to save a link to that like blog post, because I know at some point I'm going to use it later. But I don't know, maybe that's me hoarding stuff. Like I seriously want to find out if anybody's got an answer for bookmarks, because my bookmark bar right now is pretty pathetic. It's like that drawer that you have at your house where like your kids get done using the colored pencils and you're like, oh, don't want to put them away, I'll just put them in this drawer. Or you got that bill that you're like, I got to address that at some point, I'll just throw it in the drawer. And like my bookmarks bar is out of control. So I'm constantly, you know, watching feeds with Twitter and Reddit and stuff like that, and go, oh, there's a cool, I might use that in the future, let me save that. I might use this in the future, let me save that. So I've got this catalog of content that I don't need right now, but I'm constantly saving.
I think that's like my Pocket app is looking over the week. So the links are coming in about Reddit, like I said, and Google Alerts. And this is basically, I think, most of the stuff with the hashtag Angular in it. So I get everything. That everything is in my pocket, and I have to go through it and check which is worth reading and which should be linked in the newsletter, and then I archive it, and so every link is saved for the future, even the ones that are not in my newsletter. But I think, yeah, hopefully everybody's subscribing to my newsletter if they don't want to check everything.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned Google Alerts and Pocket. So let's talk about those two things really quick in terms of, so our viewers who maybe have not used those, what are those services?
The Google Alert service is like, you can add a keyword, for example, Angular or Angular 2, and Google will send you updates when there is a new article in the web or a new video, news, everything about the hashtag will be sent to you like daily or weekly. And Pocket is like, I think it's formerly it was known as Read It Later, and now it's Pocket, and it is like a bookmarking tool, but you can also read web articles in a manner that you only see the text. I like it for the bookmarking reasons mainly, because it has like this little Chrome extension where you can just bookmark the page you want to save later, and then you can add tags and yeah, go through this stuff later on your phone or laptop.
Yeah, Pocket's pretty cool. I've used it a bunch because of that fact that it's kind of like, and advanced bookmarks, right? Like you said, there's a plugin for Chrome that you can use. You can use on your mobile device, on your desktop, and easily bookmark these things into Pocket. But then you can add tags and make it a little bit easier to rediscover that thing. Because that's certainly a problem that when you go to bookmark items and you bookmark everything under the sun, like me, then you end up having to, I got to go back and rediscover that at some point. And sure, I can make a bunch of folders and self-organize that, but it's difficult. So Pocket makes it easy with these tags to say, I'm going to tag this as router, I'm going to tag this as AOT, and then hopefully make that rediscovery of it a little bit easier.
I think a lot of people use like Evernote and things like that for similar reasons.
Yeah. I try to defer some of my reading, so I may come across an article or a tweet as I take a 5-minute break or something like that, and see this article. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll just create a reminder in my calendar to go in the back later that night and look that up, and then snooze it until I get tired of snoozing it and forget it. But at least it's stored in my Google Calendar, so I can go back and find it. The other thing that I've heard of people using, at least a couple of people that I haven't tried, is Pinterest. Pinterest is a way of pinning different articles and what have you. I know that a lot of people, from what I've heard, use it for like recipes or home ideas, but why not use it for technical articles as a way of organizing different tech articles that you want?
I have two apps that I can recommend. So I use Flipboard on my phone, and I know I have this Angular magazine from Dan Walling, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you use it. And then there's also the Medium app, but that's mostly because I use Medium as my blogging platform.
Yeah, I think there's two different strategies there with Medium, or at least with mentioning Medium, is that you have two different avenues when it comes to content. One is discoverability. How are you discovering new content, which you can do through Medium, and also the idea of, with the bookmarks within Medium, to figure out how to go back and retrieve those and organize those. And I think everybody's kind of haphazardly defining their own workflow to be able to keep track of that content.
Yeah, I get, for example, the articles from Big from the feed in Medium, for example, instead of seeing them on Twitter, which probably is after.
So when you're producing content, right, like your blog posts and stuff, and you're obviously thinking about, well, how do I get this out to the people, and how do I reach them with being visible, and you use Medium as a platform, you've got some built-in stuff for discovery for people that are monitoring that through Medium to see your content. But what about beyond that? Are you thinking about like how do I think I'm going to reach the most people? Is it through tweeting about it? Is it through putting it on Reddit? Like what are you thinking about in terms of when you create your content and want to get it out there?
Well, in my case, I started, I think it was 2 years ago. So a lot of things have changed since then. So the initial experience was nobody's looking at my blog post. So that was a really frustrating experience, because you get some Google Analytics, and then when you see that happening, you get like really sad. You're working on a blog post for 1-2 weeks, and then you see that nobody is taking care of it. Like nobody cares. That's quite depressive. But then I started using. I think at the beginning I started using how it's called, Echo.js, like similar to Hacker News in JavaScript. Reddit, I posted in Reddit. I also did post my blog post in Twitter, Google+, and then as you go, you try different platforms, and I don't know, LinkedIn, and Oh, you want to put it out there, so you will go and spread, spread the blog post as much as you can. The thing is, after some time, it will just happen. You know, that was at the beginning when, nobody knew about the blog post, and as you go, there's not much that much effort anymore. So it just happens. People catch up on the blog post, and then maybe it will take some time. But the moment people get to see the blog post, then it will just spread like naturally. Maybe not in a spike, but just slowly. So you don't care anymore about that. It happens. It probably is nothing that will happen between 1 or 2 days after you publish it, but it will happen in the next like 3-4 months. So that's at the point I'm at. So it changes because obviously as you get more followers and people get to know your content, then I guess there's people like retweeting without looking, or I don't know. It's easier. It gets easier.
I just have Brocco retweet all my tweets.
You can also do that.
It's also a good idea to have people who don't have as many followers as you to retweet your tweets.
What do you think is your best stream of to get people to look at it? What's your biggest outlet to get people looking at your content and giving you feedback and things like that?
I think in my case was getting my blog post in the Google Developers Experts publication in Medium. I think that changed the number of people, the impact. But I don't think I have any control on that. I see the numbers. I can check the numbers on the Medium analytics side of things. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I think Twitter will be on the top for me, I think.
For me, I think it was like posting it on Reddit is always good, better than post it on Twitter with a hashtag or something. But maybe because I don't have that much followers. But the best thing was always when Pascal crashed, retweeted my tweets. So it was better than Reddit.
Oh yeah. In my case, if I get a retweet from Angular, that's the end of the day. I just drop my pencil and leave for the day.
Just have to turn off Twitter on your phone. It's just useless.
No, but that's not easy to get a retweet from Angular. It's not easy.
So let's talk a little bit more about Twitter, because obviously I think it's a source. I mean, I like to tell devs that I meet all the time that, like, look, I feel that you need to be on Twitter. You don't need to be necessarily tweeting, but you need to be following people on Twitter. You need to be following topics on Twitter, because it's a great source for staying up to date with all this Angular content going through the pipe, right?
Yeah.
And so I recommend following a bunch of people that I know that they're constantly putting out content. I like to try and recirculate content through my Twitter handle. So I try and find other content and get that out to people so that people can follow me to know that they can receive some content that I'm curating on the topic. What do you guys think in terms of, I mean, it sounds like I think everybody here is on Twitter in terms of, and finds and discovers a lot of their content through Twitter, finds out what's hot, what's going on, what's the buzz, what are these latest, what's ThoughtRam putting out in terms of blog posts, all these sort of things, right? Is it a fair statement that you would recommend any dev to really have a presence there, at least in following for a source of content?
Make a lot of noise. That works for me. But then I also get, when you do a lot of noise, obviously people get annoyed. So it's, you need to find a balance, but it's difficult.
Right.
I don't have the perfect
not necessarily you having your presence in terms of you being vocal on Twitter or typing on Twitter, but just having an account and monitoring that as a source, right? Because I have some friends that are like, dude, I don't want any part of that cesspool of Twitter. I'm not going to be on it. I'm like, but you're a dev. You're like, you should at least get on there and follow people so you could have a stream of content to keep up to date on this stuff, because it's worth it. That just don't ever tweet, right?
Oh yeah. You can use Twitter as a really good source. If you probably have to be careful, because you can also get, your feed can go crazy. Like it depends how you do it. But I probably will go to some of the people that I know that they are creating good content, and then I will check what they are up to. So it's a different way of. I won't be sitting on my feet just waiting for content. But maybe I would go to Victor Sapkins and say, okay, what has he done? And then I will see what's going on in there, and then I will move into Jeff Cross or Todd Moto or all the regular suspects, and I will do this from time to time, and kind of Facebook, like looking what's going on their feeds.
So with Twitter and curating your feed, because finding out who to follow and where to get good content is very important. But how are you organizing that content? Because there's, at least in my stream, if I take some time away, there's no way to scroll back, and there's other content because you have other interests and everything else. Are you using lists? Are you using saved searches? What kind of tooling are you using with Twitter? Are you using just Twitter or additional clients? Basically, how are you using Twitter would be my question.
I'm using it only I'm using it as a person, of course, for fun, but
oops.
She'll be back.
Every 3 days or so, and then I recheck everything which is posted on Angular, and most of the stuff already is duplicated stuff, or I already saw it on Reddit, and I already know the article or the video, and I go through it and like in the morning, like some kind of work, and then I bookmark it and leave it for the day. I don't have any lists, not at least any good lists, but I think, so if you're a developer and hate Twitter, you just could make an account and add some lists, people to a list. So you don't have to follow anybody.
One pro tip I have for using Google to find things is actually Google has like a advanced tool where you can like filter how far you want to go back for searches. Anytime I'm looking for anything Angular, I make sure it's like the past month or something.
I do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point. Let's talk about that here in a minute in terms of searching for content, right? Because I also want to get in a little bit about it's just Angular, and we can have a discussion about that. But before that, it's like in Twitter, TweetDeck, that's something that I use from time to time, and an application allows you to have multiple columns, so you can follow. You can have your mainstream, you can have other tags or lists that you follow. And so I have a couple different ones that I've set up for filtering just Angular tags, some other type of stuff. And then I'll use TweetDeck to kind of monitor that and see the content from those different streams. That's one tool I use in terms of for Twitter.
Yeah, I use it too, TweetDeck, because of the other account for the newsletter. But I don't have a safe search, so I'm typing Angular every 3 days or so.
Okay, cool. So get on Twitter. Like, you don't have to post, but get on Twitter and start following some stuff. One of the things I also do is I'll start following somebody, and then I'll see who they follow, and then I'll kind of vet what they're tweeting about, and to see, okay, this person's following this person. Let me see what their tweet stream is like. Oh yeah, they're pumping out a bunch of content, links to posts and stuff. Okay, cool, I'll follow them. Or, okay, this person's just kind of talking about their daily life. Cool, but maybe I don't want to add it to my content that I'm trying to consume. So, I'll kind of pick and choose that way, and discover other people from the people that I'm following to try and kind of get an idea of, okay, who's in our space, in our Angular space, that's using Twitter to deliver content out there for us, and try and follow those people so I know I can have this constant stream of relevant content for Angular. So Austin, you were talking about searching, and the tip that you brought up, I think, is awesome. I use that all the time in going into Google and doing the advanced options and changing the date range for what you want to search for. I think that's an issue with development, whether you're searching for Angular content or any type of web development content. Everything changes in our industry so fast, right, that you want something that's current. And a lot of times, when you Google search something, there's not an elegant way to really say, look, I need the most relevant stuff, right? I don't need something that was written 3 years ago because I know that API or whatever has probably changed. So that's one way to do it, right? And any other tips and stuff in terms of when you go to search content, and then we'll talk about it's just Angular.
Well, I can say that probably the best sources are newsletters, because there's some curation, as you were mentioning before, and yeah, you need to appreciate the work that goes into it. So I've been a fan of Angular 2 Comet for the last probably 2-3 months, and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it because it's more like getting the magazine, and you get kind of addicted to it. You're like, oh, I think it's coming. It must be around. And in my case, I also look if my articles made it to it. So that's also that's a different reason. But yeah, no, it's there's a lot of good content on them, and I can recommend few. So there's, I think the original, I think, is the ng newsletter that comes from an ng book, and that was the newsletter that I was consuming in Angular. But now I'm more looking after Angular 2 Comet. I don't know. The thing is, you obviously want to mix, and get as much good content as you can. So I wouldn't say to go for one or the other. I would say like just register to all of them.
Yeah, do you worry about getting inundated with too much stuff, that you're just like cataloging all this stuff? You follow all of them, you do all this stuff, and now you just got this pile of links and content that at some point when you go to say, okay, I'm ready to work on router code, well, how do I rediscover the stuff that I've saved? Or did you end up just like saving the internet and now you're just researching the internet, but it's on your account?
Oh, the way I go about it is I try to see the content. So I look at the list. So for example, imagine I get this Angular 2 Comet new issue. So the first thing I would go is look and see, oh, this is interesting. So I will go and just open all of the new tabs, and then try to see what's going on inside, but not too much in detail, but just to put it on my mind. And then if it depends, because sometimes it's a video and you obviously need to save some time to watch it, or it's a slide, so there's some cool article, and then I need to go to it later. But yeah, I try to look at it, because if I don't look at it, I would never go back again to that. That's in my experience what happens. I don't do lists because of that, because I never look at the list afterwards. So I need to push myself to do it at the moment, in the moment.
But I think the one thing to consider is, as you are trying to drink from this fire hose of content that's coming out from all these different communities, is remembering that the depth in which you research or learn something new is very important. So, okay, maybe you're just aware of GraphQL. It's like, oh, okay, I know what that is at the server and at the surface level, and maybe that's something I'm at least aware of, but I don't necessarily need to dive deep into it until I may need that. Or maybe I'm not using Redux, but at least I understand what that is conceptually. But the router, okay, I definitely need routing in my application. So I'm going to dive deep and read more about that and go out and specifically look for that type of specific content to be able to learn a deeper layer or the inner workings, so that I can take full advantage of that, because that's something that I will be using within my applications.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, if you have just like general exposure to it, right? Like, you know, you're working on something and you're like, oh, well, I saw this the other day. Now you have that exposure. You can go back to some of this content that you've seen before and really dig in and get more depth into it. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I think you guys are making a really great point in terms of getting exposure to, you know, what's hot and what's being talked about and what else is out there, right? Because it will keep that on your mind for when you go to solve another problem, another architecture problem you're working on. If you're aware that those things exist, now you may end up identifying that you can use them in the future, right? So just having that coming through your content stream to just be aware that, oh, that's something that's out there, that's a possibility, pays dividends down the road.
Also,
yeah, it also depends on your role. For in my case, because I do these like completely different things, and they are all interrelated, it's difficult to switch. Sometimes maybe I will be looking at the content as a speaker, or maybe as a blogger, or maybe as a community manager, or maybe I will plan for a webinar. So it's all mixed in my head. So when I'm consuming content, maybe I'm not the best example, because I will be, you know, jumping from topic to topic. Like I can use this as an idea, or maybe I need to learn more about this topic, because now maybe soon it will become, you know, mainstream. The thing is, everyone is interested in different things. Maybe you want to look into it because it's fun.
Well, and I think just that point, like you said, and what you mentioned about the effort and work that goes into delivering this content that you do for the comment and the newsletter. I mean, these are things that you two are not only monitoring stuff for your own personal growth and usage in your development, but you're also having to think about, how can I pass this information on and pick the right stuff? So now it's on this next level that you guys are consuming and aggregating through that content that you're taking in. And it's a lot of work, and we certainly appreciate it, because that means we're getting this really relevant top content that you guys are doing all this hard work for to deliver to us and help us weed through it. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, obviously we like it. I really like when I find a nice, it's kind of a candy, you know, when you find a nice article, it's like, yes, nice. So totally. It's all good.
So let's talk about videos. I mean, we mentioned that a little bit. And, you know, a lot of the conferences that are out there in our community put out live streams or put out videos of the sessions right after, or we have these meetups like Angular Zone that has these videos that are out there. There's a ton of Angular content and presentations out there on YouTube through different channels. Stuff like that. A lot of conferences have their own YouTube channels, and that's where you can discover these videos. So things like Angular Up recently, and then they have a channel, Angular Connect, ngConf. You can go to YouTube and search for those things and find these channels that then have all of these sessions that are another great source for content.
Totally. This is maybe not so much used, I think, by the people. And I always try to remember the people, okay, maybe you cannot attend to a conference, but there's a lot of tons of good content around, you know, the time. Sometimes people post some content before, like they prepare a blog post. Like, for example, Tero Parivianen, he does this series, like long series, and he's like publishing some blog posts, and then he does a talk. Or maybe Pascal also likes to do, like he covers a topic, and you can follow the topic, and then he publishes a talk at a conference. So it's kind of a small story that is going farther and farther, and it's good to follow it. And yeah, I guess it's the best, because the blog post is just a small picture, but the talk is just covering like the final conclusion. So I would definitely recommend talks.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of work going into them.
And even if there are conferences going on that may not necessarily be recording videos, because not every conference is able to do that, pay attention to the hashtags, or go back and look at the hashtags from different conferences.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'll even get the surface level of that general idea of different trends that are going on within a conference, of what people are talking about. So you may not be able to get the specific content, but at least get the topic of different things that you can look into.
Yeah, the thing is there are different kinds of content as well. So you have tutorials. You know, we are talking about blog posts, but there are, you know, videos. There are like small like code labs, and these like few minutes lessons. And I don't know, I guess it's like food. You know, you can go for a tutorial, and then change for a blog post, and then go for some slides. Yeah, but yeah, definitely try different types of content. And sometimes it's just a small piece of information that it will help you.
So I'm trying to find better ways that I can motivate myself to watch more videos. These videos, these conference sessions and stuff like that. Like I tend to gravitate towards blog posts and things like that. I think probably because I can consume them while I'm doing some other work, right? And I feel like the videos, I need to kind of set aside some time. So I'm trying to find a good balance of how to motivate myself to get in that. Do you guys have any tips? I mean, do you guys watch a lot of these videos in your regular cycle? And do you have any like secret tips of how do you set aside time a certain day or what?
You can go to the gym and watch videos while running or something. That's my tip.
Nice. What I find myself doing is I print out some blog posts, and when I'm traveling, I use, you know, these dead times, like you don't know what to do, and then I use this PDF kind of version of it. Like I don't depend on being online.
Cool.
But that's only when I'm traveling.
So you're saying travel more. If I travel a lot, then I'll have a place to watch my videos.
Well, that's the same like you know, the TV shows and movies.
You need this like zone, this time to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, no, and you want to be like relaxed, because sometimes the talks are tense, so you cannot be distracted and trying to watch, you know, a conference talk. You won't process it anyway.
Also, another tip for when you're watching videos, especially on YouTube, and a lot of other players have this as well, is that you can watch it at a faster speed, so maybe at 1.5 speed or 2 times the speed as well, to be able to consume the content, but a little bit quicker.
I like to mute the talking. Just watch what they're doing with their hands.
I'm going to go back and watch this episode muted.
Yeah, that can be interesting.
Okay, let's talk about It's Just Angular. And has the dust kind of settled on that? Everybody feeling kind of good about this now as we can go forward and start letting things kind of naturally grow back into the for Angular content using the word Angular, and we know that over time SEO and stuff will resolve and we'll be in a happy spot. Are we good with that now? Hopefully. Thoughts? Like in terms of the comment, right? Is it Angular 2 comment right now? Are you planning on changing that name?
Yeah, maybe. So I obviously thought about it. And maybe I will change it in the future. But what I'm hoping is that Angular is good in my opinion, because the whole version thing, if we have a clear way to distinguish from the 1.x versions with AngularJS, and I hope this is a clear separation from the new Angular stuff, and then it's a good name. Yeah.
I've been calling all my projects ngX instead of ng2. I've just been doing ngX. I was trying to do ng star, but that wouldn't work on npm packages.
I don't know if you have seen recently, I think it was Joe Ims from ngConf. He wrote this article, like maybe a comical article, like, okay, so we have Angular 1, we have this new name, it's just Angular, but then a lot of people, it's not, we are like a close circle of people, but not everybody is so close. And the people that they are not in contact with the Angular community in a regular basis, they just don't know what you are talking about. Like, imagine if you talk to a recruiter, like if I go back now in London and they are looking for people, if they say we are looking for an Angular developer, the first question will be which version of Angular, regardless the name of the library. If you want, it's just different people. These people, I think it will take some time to follow. But I agree, it's Angular, and we all know that we are kind of moving from Angular 1 to Angular 2. So it will just happen. But at this point, it's a little bit confusing because we are still, in the process of moving from the old ways to the new ways. But it will settle. The thing is, we don't know I don't know what will happen. I'll start using the Angular naming convention, obviously, because that's what it has been said in the community. But the thing is, there's more people outside the community that are inside. So we'll see how this works out. But I totally agree. For me, just Angular is fine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, of course, who produce content, right, and writing blog posts and stuff, it's important to them because they're concerned about how do I make sure my reach is out there, how I make sure that people are consuming and finding my content, if I take out the 2 and start doing this, right? But I'm a firm believer of like, life finds a way, right? Kind of a little Jurassic Park there. And eventually your content will find a way to the people. And you have the content in there, you talk about what you're doing and what you're pulling off. You include in your blog post what versions this supports from this version up, right? In terms of the code that you're talking about. And eventually the strength of what that content is will surface up and people will find it, right?
It's only a trick. It's kind of a mind trick, because who doesn't know that Angular, it's just Angular, it's Angular 2. So if you don't find the results using Angular, you will change it to Angular 2. But for some people, they wouldn't know, so there will be some confusion in there. But just for the people, like the new people, probably for us, it will be easy. But yeah, for the new people, maybe it's a different story.
I kind of feel like when you say AngularJS, that means like 1.x. And when you say Angular, that's like 2 star plus. So that's kind of how I differentiate when I'm looking.
Yeah, it's the true differentiation. Really brought that out. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
The differentiation between that exact scenario of AngularJS versus Angular 2 versus Angular is currently actually being played out on Stack Overflow to determine the appropriate tag alignments so that people are able to find the right content in as quickly as possible. And if we can nail down the tag allocations to be aligned with the naming convention that's being brought out by the team, then I think that'll allow people to find content quicker, because a lot of people, or while a lot of us are going out and finding blog posts and videos and everything else to learn, a lot of people are still just searching for bugs. Hey, I'm running into this bug. How do I solve this particular issue? And
Yeah.
the go-to place to get that is Stack Overflow.
Yeah, and this whole Angular and AngularJS thing actually played out really early on when Angular.io and the website came online for 2 and above, right, or beta and stuff like that, because we have this AngularJS.org, which was 1x, right, and now Angular.io, which is 2 and beyond, and so really you had this AngularJS and Angular, and that was kind of already set in motion way early on. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we're getting to the end of the show, so we better wrap it up and move on to picks and stuff like that. Unless anybody wants one last thing I want to throw in there about discovering content, or are we good to move on to picks?
Oh, I would recommend to look into books. I think we didn't mention it, and probably you want if you want to go for you know, a good bet for quality content, you obviously need to remember that there is still Angular books. This is also another option for a good quality source.
Do books NPM update themselves when there's new breaking changes?
Oh, yeah.
Like digital editions of books, you know, because there's certainly a lot of like ngBook and Angular Router and those sort of things that are out there that are constantly like living books, right? Versus hard copy books. I mean, should people focus on more of these digital scenarios because they are updated regularly?
Oh, and we also miss GitHub. So obviously you can also look into new libraries, as if you are more like looking into the code, but then it depends if you like to look at the code, how people is building stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, right? GitHub's another excellent one. Like in terms of the other day, I needed to try and figure out how to build a module, you know, a separate library that I want to be able to have people npm install and stuff. And so going to places like Austin's D3 stuff and the Angular Translate stuff, you know, is a great source for, it's not a blog post or whatever, but you're looking at source code and you're learning from that, right? It's absolutely excellent source to do that.
Yeah, I like that too.
One thing I use a lot is GitHub trending. Pretty much you can filter to TypeScript, and that's all Angular projects. So you can look, you can look at there and see basically all the trending Angular projects. Sometimes there's some React TypeScript foes that creep up there, but for the most part, you're going to find a lot of Angular content there, and it's a great resource as well.
Cool. All right, well, we'll get all this stuff in the episode notes so that somebody can figure out how to track this stuff down later after the show. All right, let's get to picks. So our guests, do you guys have anything that you want to kind of plug at the end of the show here?
Yeah, I have a list to a YouTube playlist from a conference or congress which happened at the end of last year. And it's full of interesting talks. If they were in German, they are translated, I think. So you should check out. I can recommend, I have to go through lots of the videos too, but I can recommend the Ultimate Game Boy talk and Beyond Virtual and Augmented Reality. Other talks are on security or information technology in general, how it affects the society and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Gerard, do you have something?
I have a website, but this is maybe too specific. It's for managing call for papers, and it's called papercall.io. So if it gives you a dashboard where you can create different events. So for example, I can create one for Angular Zone, and I can share the link to this event, and then any speakers can go and register the call for papers, so the talks, and then it has some features to rate the talks if you have a team looking into them, or you can ask or start a conversation with the speaker if you want some clarification, or you're about to do an announcement for the different talks for a meetup or maybe a conference. And I found it really useful.
That sounds really cool. That'd be really useful for AngularAir. So I'm actually going to bookmark that, but I'm going to bookmark it with the AngularAir account so it doesn't go into my massive drawer.
Cool.
All right, Mike, what do you got?
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Angular Beers. They tweeted out during the show today that AngularAir is a good source for content. So I will pick AngularAir for being able to find Angular content in the community. My other pick is the ng-conf talk submission committee. They have about 270 different talks to go through to manage to narrow that down. Actually going to be during ng-conf. So if you submitted a talk, good luck, and good luck to the committee for selecting the content that's going to be coming out here in a couple months.
Yes, definitely. They got their work cut out.
That they do.
All right, Austin.
Yeah, so a couple of things that I like to use for finding new content. JavaScript Weekly newsletter, it's one of my favorite. Every week there's a mix of everything different from Angular to React to Electron. It's great. Awesome Angular 2. Whoever wrote that is going to have to change their name. But that's a great awesome list of just all kinds of different content in there, all related to Angular 2. It's a great resource. And then also something that's probably not as well known is I like to use this page called libraries.io. It lets you subscribe to new releases. So anytime a new Angular version is released, it sends me an email immediately. And that's really cool to help you stay on top of your NPM update game. Two other things that I have. I think I've plugged this before, but Flex Layout by the Angular team. It's a grid layout system for Angular 2 Angular. And it is really awesome. Those guys are doing a lot of really cool stuff. It is, I mean, they've thought of so many things. I was just trying to figure out how to do something really crazy in it, with responsive content that's got fixed sizes, and they're using observables so that you can listen to observable, as things break down with different breakpoints on your screen, you can listen for observable breakpoints there. And then my last thing is I'm plugging Todd Motto's NG2 fundamentals that he said is dropping this week. So that'll be pretty cool if you like videos to learn new Angular content. It's a great resource.
Sweet. That was a ton of content. Thank you. I just have one. Mine is Victor Savkin's going to be doing a webinar on using WebStorm for Angular development. So that should be pretty cool. That's in February. I'll post a link to that. That's my pick. All right. Next week, we're going to be talking about RxJS with Ben Lesh and Tracy Lee are going to be joining us. And make sure you tune in on that. That'll be a really interesting episode, and we should have some demos and stuff like that. So it should be pretty good. And then we got PWAs and mobile coming up after that. Some other things like talking about NG Cruise and planning that. All kinds of good content coming down the pipe. So make sure you tune in each Tuesday or watch the videos through our channel. All right, thanks a ton to our guests for joining us today, having this discussion. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate the content that you guys curate and deliver for us in the community. And we definitely pledge to help you guys out in the transition to It's Just Angular. So if you need help promoting your name changes and whatnot, we're on your side. We're going to help you out with that. So let us know. And thanks again for joining us. And everybody have a great week discovering Angular content. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.